The Natural and Cultural Heritage Fund has boosted sustainable tourism in the Highlands and Islands. It has created new places to visit in a part of Scotland that are both beautiful and fragile. Human beings are storytellers at heart, so keep watching to find out where you can discover the stories behind the places you visit and where you can reimagine the past and create stories of your own.
The Coast That Shaped the World is a community-based tourism project. Part of the purpose of this and what the project has allowed us to do is to promote a more sustainable tourism. What we've done is collect stories related to more obscure and less visited locations on the West Coast, in the hope that some of the kind of tourist visitor traffic will be directed to those areas, benefiting those regions and those local economies rather than taking people to the same sites over and over again. The Coast app and website provides a way for people to discover stories like this one. This is a well-known Fort William landmark, but not many people actually know the story behind this. This is a bottle boat that was used by adventurer Tom McLean in 1990 to cross the Atlantic and raise money for charity. There are many other examples of this kind of story dotted throughout the West Coast and Islands. One favourite of ours is connected to the stunning castle of Castle Cheetham, based on a tidal islet near a caracal.
So I got involved in the project back in 2021 when a few guys were getting together to build a new jetty. Everybody there had different knowledge, different skills, and was sharing that. So it was everything from labouring to learning everything about how we were doing the concreting, how we were laying the stones. That led on to coming to this project, which started earlier this year. And here there's been dry stain diking, there's been lime mortaring.
So the Real Wild West Adopt a Monument, an Ardnamurchan project, was about bringing people together to explore their heritage, to learn new skills, to increase health and well-being, and to use heritage as a way to encourage people to visit Ardnamurchan, to spend a bit more time here and hopefully increase the economic benefit of the area.
We've been able to capture content all the way from Arran and Cumbria right up to Orkney and Shetland, so covering just about a third of Scotland's landmass, and turning those stories into inspirational content to inspire visitors to come and see for themselves why the Highlands and Islands are so great. Part of that has been the tapestry. That will be a visual vehicle for all these stories, encompassing broad regional stories, but also really personal local stories of the stitchers who have been involved in creating that phenomenal artwork.
We've had a really diverse range of people working with us on the project through different communities all across the Highlands and Islands. We've got over 650 stitchers. Some of those have included school groups. So they've had an introduction to stitching and learning how to stitch and learning new techniques that they have really enjoyed.
So we've also invested in immersive technology. So we have two 5x5 metre cylinders which host our immersive films, inviting people to experience the Highlands and Islands in a new way. So these are the first of their kind in the Highlands as well. And we've been able to put them in impactful locations where communities have come to see what we're doing and really benefited from being able to interact with a new piece of technology. We wouldn't have been able to do that without the funding that we've had from Naturescot.
We were absolutely thrilled to partner with the North Isles Landscape Partnership Scheme to build a joint bid for NCHF funding under the heading of Access to Orkney Heritage. And we really thought about that, and we targeted our funding on really things that really did open up the content of the museum. So some of the external features, we did some of the landscaping through this funding pot. We restored the historic day tank in front of the museum. We installed bike racks. We even did the museum doors, which really you couldn't get a better example of access to heritage. So NCHF really were an absolutely key part of the funding and really helped us make the museum what it is today, which is a museum that's been shortlisted for Museum of the Year.
From our side, we're working in the North Isles, the 10 inhabited islands in the North Isles of Orkney, working with our partners at the Scapa Flow Museum to encourage both locals and visitors to the islands to be able to access key sites around the islands whether that be archaeology, nature, wildlife, geology, that kind of thing. So the funding has helped us to be able to improve gates, paths, got lovely new interpretation boards across a lot of the islands in the North Isles.
Strathnaver Museum tells the history of the local area, North West Sutherland, through the context of the Highland clearances, looking at 8,000 years of occupation all the way through to the modern day. Our building was built in 1774. There had been no major work done on it since the 1970s, so it was in much need of repair and maintenance in order to make sure that our visitors had a good experience and also that our collection was being well looked after. The capital investment allowed us to make those much needed repairs to our historic building and also gave us more space in the form of the annex, which allows us to tell a more coherent story to a new audience that is being brought past our doors via the North Coast 500, and more importantly, to share our knowledge with a new generation by being able to provide workshops for our local schools.
The UIST Virtual Archaeology Project is a digital interpretation project which reimagines and revisualises 5 archaeological sites along the Hebridean Way using augmented reality in the UIST Unearthed app and the multimedia exhibition. We've got amazing archaeological sites in UIST, but a lot of them are hidden away, they're under the Macha or the moorland, or they're quite hard to get to. So they're not always particularly accessible. And combined with that, we've got these fragile landscapes like the Macha, for example, which means we don't want to go too far in terms of physical infrastructure and physical interpretation. And so we decided to develop digital solutions to presenting our heritage. I think one of the biggest successes of these projects has just been how much we've been able to raise awareness of US internationally significant archaeology to a much more diverse audience, from school children right through to the older generations and a range of visitors as well.
Initial projects we worked on are looking at providing car parking and toilets. What the NCHF project allowed us to do was really focus on doing work to protect and make sustainable the access to these sites. They're fantastic sites, that's why people want to visit them. The problem is that we've gone from 10, 20,000 people a year visiting them 15 years ago to 200,000 plus people visiting them per year. Triple size, they're very fragile, we've had a lot of damage built up over the years. So this project's allowed us to take a look at how we can improve what's on site in 3 different ways. To improve the visitor experience and make tourism in these sites an awful lot more sustainable. To recover habitat. So we've improved the infrastructure, we built paths and bridges, making it open to a wider spectrum of the population. We've used a range of habitat restoration techniques to bring back the lost habitat and allow it to thrive and recover. And lastly, we've put in interpretation which allows us to explain the sites, the natural history and the cultural history, and also tie in and maybe get people to think a wee bit more about how they use the sites and how they use their holidays, and to get the best out of themselves and out of the sites.
The funding has allowed us to create a world-class facility here with the Rewilding Centre at Dundragon, a place that we can now share with a larger audience. Dundragon is our hub for all of the rewilding work that Trees for Life does as a charity. Our tree nursery is here, and a lot of the on-ground planting and preparation for other sites happens here as well. And as part of the Rewilding Centre project, we were able to develop really comprehensive interpretation that highlights the Gaelic culture in this area. It's so deeply connected and embedded in the natural landscape here, and so to be able to highlight those connections is really important to us. We want Dundragon to serve as an exemplar of how a working rewilding estate can provide socioeconomic benefit to the surrounding communities. The centre has already created 15 full-time equivalent jobs. That's 20 people on staff here. Many of the jobs are full-time, they're year-round, and 8 of the staff members are residents of this immediate area in the Glen.
So we've had many benefits, both for the visitor and for the staff. The Lockhart and Osprey Centre, as was, has been completely refurbished. It's now the Lockhart and Nature Centre, and with that has come a much greater focus on the wider forest. We're no longer a one-species centre We're talking about the wider Caledonian pine forest and other habitats that you can find at Abernethy Reserve. The benefits have been really huge, to be honest. We've got a beautiful open plan visitor centre, now the Lockhart and Nature Centre, so we're talking much more about all the wildlife people can see here and the habitats people can see here, but focusing mainly on the Caledonian pine forest and the work that we're doing here on Abernethy Reserve to restore the forest to its natural range. And it's really enabled us to open for a longer period during the season. So the visitor experience, visitors when they come here, they get more chance to interact with a member of staff because we can be here all year round, and the centre is open for longer. It's open earlier in the spring and later into the autumn as well.
So Hermanus is a national nature reserve, and it's designated for spectacular and internationally important numbers of breeding seabirds. The Hermanus Hill Path and Welcome area has enabled us to very much enhance the visitor experience. It's enabled us to create this fantastic visitor hub that we're in now with an information display, toilets and an improved car park, but it's also enabled us to install nearly 2 kilometres of recycled plastic boardwalk through the centre of the reserve, which creates a circular walk on the reserve and also importantly protects fragile peatland from thousands of walking feet, and also routes people so that they're not disturbing sensitive breeding birds.
The support from Naturescot has enabled an entirely new era here at the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland's Highland Wildlife Park. Not only are we going to have several brand new, incredibly impressive buildings, but they've enabled the expansion of a whole discovery and learning team and a brand new activity programme. So not only are we going to be able to better provide on-site support and a detailed programme offering, but we're going to be going out into the local community. Having these facilities, these brand new buildings, is what's going to enable us to reach people right from the end of the scale where maybe they already love nature, they know what it means to them, and they know how to work and live within it, right to the other end of the scale where they want to come to the park to see polar bears, but really they don't understand that interconnectedness yet. The landscapes on the doorstep of Scotland's Wildlife Discovery Centre and our learning hub underpin everything about what we're trying to talk about, whether it's peatlands, whether it's mountains and everything in between. We as people and as local communities living alongside those habitats, we have an integral role to play in the protection of them. And the buildings, the Learning Hub and Scotland's Wildlife Discovery Hub are going to bring those landscapes to life. We know the number of barriers that people face when it comes to reconnecting with nature, and we're hoping that this combination of buildings, a team and a programme are going to help people overcome that, inspire them and enable them to better find their place within nature again.
The Natural Cultural Heritage Fund enabled us to realise the redevelopment project completion, which rebuilt the whole museum. We've created a fantastic new permanent exhibition space, which we've been able to, for the first time, display lots and lots of items for our own collections, but also artefacts from national collections from the National Museum of Scotland and the British Museum, and telling the story of the prehistoric landscape and early medieval kingdom of Dalriada that was all focused in Carmarthen Glen. And we hadn't had the space before to display any of our own collections, actually, except for one tiny piece of flint. So it's fantastic to have got all this material back out or out of our stores and on display with interpretive material and visual reconstructions of what the past might have looked like. The knock-on effects or the knock-on benefits to the wider community are we've created new jobs, boosting the economy by bringing tourists to the area. So Argyll's very, very dependent on tourism for its economic drivers. And so we've created a space that we hope will have an international draw and bring people from all over the world, all times of year, to extend the shoulder months.
Steve from the Natural and Cultural Heritage Fund has allowed us to accommodate the vast numbers of visitors heading north now following the North Coast 500 road route. The new visitor services provided here in our gateway to nature. We have a beautiful welcome centre. We also have fantastic car parking with EV charging points, a motorhome waste disposal service point, and bespoke premium coach parking available too. 12 people have been employed locally across the Wester Ross. So we have 3 rangers helping conserve and protect this absolutely idyllic temperate rainforest. And we also have a team on site as well, serving the best coffee, beautiful grab and go snacks, and also engaging and sharing stories about the Northwest Highlands, various other locations people can visit, and also everything about here that's fascinating about the gorge, the trees, the biophytes, the mosses, the lichens, spectacular waterfalls, and of course our rich Gaelic and Highland heritage as well.
We've been successful in bringing £9 million of European funding into Scotland. This, combined with other grant funding, has delivered a total investment of £22 million. I'm sure you'll agree this is a big sum of money and has made a huge difference to the Highlands and Islands. The money's been targeted at areas that are in the 5 fastest growing areas for tourism in Scotland. These areas required much needed investment, and I'm sure you'll agree all the projects are outstanding. We know that most visitors to Scotland come from elsewhere in the UK, so we hope you've been inspired by the projects you've seen in this film and will add them to your travel plans for this summer.